We have the case of a commissioner who is called out by their artist on Twitter. Let's get into this. And again, like I've said in my other videos, I promise the lighting will get better once I get back down to LA. So the person in question that made this post and who is the artist in the situation is Emarazu, who is a V artist. And I apologize so much if I butcher the name. So the post reads, "Beware artists of Aaliyah Illy or Lilac BBs. Thread on my experience. I was approached to do my first VTuber model art around June 13th, 2023. I had explained that it was my first time doing it, so it may be scuffed, so I offered it at a more affordable price of $400. So here are some texts between Lilac or Aaliyah Illy. Aaliyah says, "I mean, also if you need practice with doing models, you can do mine, LOL." And Emmy says, "I have separated and drawn models of my own, so I know how to cut and name. I definitely give it to you for a discounted price as you'd be my first full body model. I'd be really honored if you consider that. Trust that I would pour my heart and soul into making it as perfect as possible for you." And Aaliyah says, "OMG, for real, I would love that. Your style is literally perfect." So Aaliyah messages them on June 12th, 2023, "OMG, the sketch is so yummy." And then Emarazu says, Aaliyah, and then Aaliyah says, "How are you? I was just wondering if we are still gonna do the model." And Emmy says, "Absolutely, we agreed on something correct." And it is blocked by the down arrow on the screenshot, unfortunately. And Aaliyah says, "Were you serious about doing my VTuber model?" And Emmy says, "Absolutely, if you're up for it." Aaliyah says, yes, I love it. How much would you charge for it?" And Emmy says, "Truly considering it, it would probably be $400, including rigging." And then Aaliyah writes, "I'm paying you what you deserve until this model is done." In their thread, Emarazu continues, "Which we agreed to pay in separate payments until the model was complete, meaning she would only receive the model once it was fully paid off, as that's how commissions work. I sent the initial request for payment on October 10th, 2023. The model had been completed within 6 months." The first screenshot of this set is still the one where Emmy says, "Hey, it'll be $400, and Aaliyah says, "Okay." And then here are examples of Emmy giving the work. And I have to say, the art is absolutely gorgeous. I can't believe this is their first model because their art is like professional looking. But this was on June 3rd, 2024. Emarazu shows a photo of the head completely rendered, writing, "Added another expression and adjusted the hair. She's practically finished. All the layers have been cut and named." And on the bottom here, it's a little bit cut off, but we have a photo of the full body of the model. And Emarazu in the tweet continues, "And yet she's yet to pay me as there's still 100 USD left, meaning it's been 14 months, a year and 2 months, that she has had to pay the model and to express her issues concerning financial troubles. 2 months later, I had updated her that the model was complete and that she'd receive it whenever she was able to pay off the rest of the money she owed. She didn't reply until 2 months later, stating she could not pay it off and told me to sell it." So here are the messages between Aaliyah and Emarazu. This was on Discord, August 27th, 2024. Aaliyah says Emmy, and Emmy says hi. Aaliyah says, "I'm so sorry," and then redacted, "I don't know if I can even afford it anymore. Plus, I don't even stream much anymore because working late, and is there a way we can still sell it?" And Emmy says, "Absolutely, Bean," and Aaliyah says, "I'm so sorry." And Emmy says, "No worries, doll, we can split it." And Aaliyah says, "Thank you, I really appreciate it." And oh my god, Emmy is so kind, by the way. I have to say, if I was in this situation and I just did all this work and they didn't finish the payment, I would be a lot more salty about it, but they're being so kind. Emmy continues, "I let her know that I would try and update her if she got sold. I attempted to sell her twice and discounted the model price, but it unfortunately did not sell. And I never pestered her about the remaining 100 she owed. I let her know that if the model did not sell, then it would still be available for her to receive if she paid off the rest of it at any time frame. She sent me a message asking about if it sold, in which I told her no. And she began to be aggressive and dismissive of my work, demanding her money back." Here are some DMs between Aaliyah and Emarazu. This is on Twitter, I guess on Aaliyah's other account, where Aaliyah writes, "Just making sure there's any updates on selling that model." Redacted, and then, "And I really need to make that money back." Emarazu says, "Hey, still no update, unfortunately, sorry." And Aaliyah says, "Is there any way to get something back?" Emmy says, "I don't think so. I really apologize, but I'm also working towards my bills as well. But if it makes you feel any better, the model will still be available to you for later once you settle if it doesn't get sold." And Aaliyah says, "I really don't need it anymore, Emmy. I'm not going into streaming much and it's gonna be a while. I really need it to be sold, or at least try harder to sell it. That's $300 that I basically gave the fuck away." And Emmy writes, "Hey, I'm gonna try to sell again one more time, but if it doesn't get sold, then it just doesn't. I'm sorry, there's not much I can do. In order to initially commission me, you automatically agree to the TOS whether you read it or not. Here's a screenshot of my TOS concerning refunds. And in the TOS, it reads, point number 4, refunds and cancellations. A refund cannot be requested after I start the commission. If for any reason I see that I'm unable to continue your commission, I will refund you 100% or offer an alternative, such as another type of artwork. Claiming dissatisfaction with the finished piece does not warrant a refund, as the commissioner had the entire process to voice the concerns. Doing this will result in being blacklisted. If you have any questions, please DM or send me an email." And that's completely fair. Emmy already made your model and finished it, mind you, and you're out here demanding your money back? it's not Emmy's fault that you made a purchase that you later regretted financially speaking. You should have been better with your finances. So in their tweet, Emirazu continues that Aaliyah was saying she no longer wanted the model and that I owe her the money because she had no use for the model, nor did she receive it despite being mentioned multiple times throughout different months that she'd only receive the model if it was fully paid off. Which in my opinion is completely fair. It's like if you were to purchase something from the store or like a food at a restaurant, you gotta pay for your burger before you get it at McDonald's. And Aaliyah writes, I get it, Emmy, but I have no use for it. I will try to dispute further. And Emmy writes, it does not matter whether you need or not because you approach for this art. And it's not fair to suddenly decide you do not want it anymore when I had asked you if you were still planning to use it and you said yes. You had 2 months and more to let me know if you did not want it anymore, yet you didn't. When I had spent hours of my time and messaged you the model was done and you told me you couldn't pay me. I didn't even get upset. Instead, I offered we could sell it, and when it didn't sell, I did not pester you to pay me. Instead, I let you off. I sent the request for the money 14 months ago. The model took me 6 months and you still owe me. The fact that you have the audacity to ask me for money when you owe me is ridiculous and frankly very rude and disrespectful of my work and time. If you want to dispute, go ahead because I clearly have my terms of service stated and you cannot commission me without reading my TOS. You cannot argue you did not get the art when we had communicated that you'd only receive the model art once the payment is fully fulfilled. You can easily make $300 back, but I cannot get all the time I spent on the model back. And Aaliyah writes, I cannot easily get $300 back. You do not know my situation. And the fact you can't even give back a refund of even just a little bit since I'm not using it or will not receive it is very upsetting. I did plan on using it before the situation I am now in involuntarily. You have not been trying to sell it since we have discussed when I have asked multiple times for you to try to keep selling it. This is a whole second point that I want to add to, but it's not also Emirazu's responsibility to sell the model or the artwork. You know what I mean? This is like the equivalent of like if you contacted a seamstress to make you a wedding dress, the seamstress then sits down, measures your custom measurements, and hand makes a dress for you in your size and style. Now you get the dress and unfortunately out of your control, your fiance cheated on you. Now you're not going to get married because you're single because you broke up with that piece of shit. But you can't then just go back to the seamstress and be like, take this wedding dress back and sell it back for me so I can get the money because I'm not going to get married. Like it sucks that you're not going to get married, but that's not the seamstress's problem. They made you the dress, which is the only agreement you had with the seamstress is you give me dress, I give you money. That is it. Any extenuating circumstance is not the seamstress's concern. Same in this scenario, okay? You contacted Emirazu, the artist. You're like, hey, I want a Vtuber model. Emirazu is like, cool, $400, and I give you the model. And then you're like, cool. And then Emirazu finishes the model and is like, hey man, where's the rest of my 400? And you're like, actually, I'm not going to start streaming anymore. So like, go sell it because like, I don't need it and give me all the money back. That's not the agreement. Emirazu is not in charge of dealing with your finances or your unfortunate financial situation. The only agreement you had with them is to give them the 400 to get the art. That is it. Your life circumstances, not their problem. And we see this, I feel like so many times with clients, like nightmare clients, right? And maybe Aaliyah is not like an absolute nightmare all the time, but in this specific scenario, they're being a nightmare client. And I have to say, it really sucks that you're in a situation where you're out this money and you paid for something you no longer need. But regardless of that, sucks to suck. It is what it is, right? That's not the artist's problem. So Emirazu in the DMs writes, you do not know my situation either. I cannot give back anything because that's what's written in my terms of service to protect me. Anyone can decide at any time, no matter what situation they're in, that they have no use for a model or art I've done anymore and will request the money back. But the work has already been done and sent, so that basically leaves me with nothing. Meanwhile, they walk away with free art, which is not the point of a commission. It doesn't change the fact that you had many chances to speak out and request or ask about a partial refund before the model was complete. It's your responsibility to have read and understood what can and cannot be done regardless of what situation you're in. Let me make it clear that you won't receive anything because you have yet to complete your responsibility of payment, which we have agreed upon, and you will not receive a refund of any kind, not even partial, because the art has been completed and that is stated within my TOS. In regards to selling, I have done as much as I could along with discontinuing it, and it just unfortunately hasn't worked out. I will try to sell it again, but that was never the end goal, nor was a promise in my TOS if things did not work out. And again, like this is two different things. I don't know why Aaliyah feels like they're entitled to Emirazu spending extra time to try to sell the model so they can get the money back. That's not in the job description for Emirazu. Like they were being so kind to offer that as a compromise for the situation, right? Where you couldn't afford it anymore, but Emirazu already did the work, and now we have this art piece. That was going above and beyond. You're not entitled to that. And Emirazu writes, it's not fair that I had done my part in spending countless of hours drawing, separating a model, only for her to demand the money back, where she did not even pay me the initial amount agreed on the start. The case has been deferred because the last payment she sent was over 6 months ago. And attaches a screenshot from PayPal writing, the case redacted has been deferred. One of your buyers recently visited the resolution center and opened a dispute. The buyer wished to dispute the payment that was sent on June 3rd, 2024. We deferred because it was not open within our filing deadline, and we will not investigate for now. And then Emirazu adds, polite reminder not to send hate to anyone involved. I really didn't expect this to kind of blow up, but here are my socials, in case you want to keep up with me. If you're curious about comms, I'll be updating here on when they'll reopen, so keep an eye out. Here's what some of the commenters have to say. Captain Fior writes, after reading the thread, this just sucks. Like, what the F? But also, OMG, does the model look pretty though? Emmy, you're cracked. And Emmy writes, pain, I never got to see my first daughter rigged. And Gloria writes, 6 months of work for $400. How are you even paying rent? And Kevin writes, it's crazy because I was on a call with you and Aaliyah at the same time and never realized she was like this. And Emmy writes, I was working on the model then too. I woke up super early to work on it and I spent 6 hours and 14 minutes doing line art, flat color, and rendering. You can see from the timestamps I was calling her about earring options. And attached is proof where you can see December 16, 2023. There was earring photos that were sent, and then a little while later, a photo of the model with some of the hair rendered, some of the eyes rendered, and the body drawn in. Alexia adds, usually I see the stories the other way around, but I don't really have any criticism on you for how you're presenting this. You were fair in doing the split payments, something I always argue for as I do not like full payment upfront and it's too likely to be scammed doing that. Half or 1/3 upfront to start work, to me, is acceptable, and you did something like that with them. Any contract work would have clauses stating that once work has begun, in the event of a cancellation of the work, refunds will not be made in full or at all depending on how long the work has progressed. And according to you, the work is completed, but they refuse to pay the remainder. So I see nothing that justifies them getting any refunds. Work was done, work was completed. The fact that they did not decide to continue the contract is immaterial. And Anonabelle writes, holy shit, I'm so sorry this happened, Emmy. What an actual backstab, holy shit. I pray the model sells and that you no longer have to deal with this chargeback stuff. And Ruby Art adds, in this case, just move on to the next step once your client pays their parts. So it would help you not wasting your time than not getting anything with it. I usually either do upfront or 50-50. First for the sketch and the other 50 is for me to finish the piece. So I'm guessing in their sentiment is that they wouldn't progress to the next step unless they get paid. As in, like, if it's like 50-50, so they pay 50% upfront, then you do 50% of the work. And then you don't work anymore until they give you the other 50% in that case. So they're always paying first for a service, just in kind of chunks. Oh my God. Elliot writes, same energy as the wedding photographer who was asked by the bride if she could get a refund because her and her husband were getting divorced. Like, yeah, that makes no fucking sense. Regardless of whether you don't need the photos anymore, the photos were taken. The service was done. That's not the photographer's job to deal with. It sucks that you guys got divorced, but they did their job. That's it. It's so unfortunate. Ugh. Like, if you look at Emirazu's coffee, right? Like, their art quality is so good. So anyways, to wrap this all up, please don't send hate to the other party involved in this scenario. At the end of the day, like, it sounds like they're going through something. So as much as they have fucked over Emmy in this process, you know, they're probably going through something as well that is an unfortunate circumstance for them. At the end of the day, artists, to protect yourselves, right? Like, have a TOS, which Emmy did, which is really good, where it has in writing, hey, if I've started on the work, yeah, no more asking for extra stuff or like refunds afterwards. I've already started working on it. And I do agree with the other sentiment as well, where like if you're doing partial payments, don't work until you receive that chunk of payment. Like if you're doing quarterly payments, you know, if they paid you 25% upfront, then do 25% of the work. And then until they give you the next 25% of the payment, then do the next 25% of the work, like that, so that you don't eventually get fucked over where there's a situation in this case, which is really unfortunate, where the model was completed, but the last quarter of payment was still not received yet. So I feel so bad for Emirazu. I'll have all their socials linked down below so you can go check them out because they seem like a really cool and talented artist. And I'm so sorry for this scenario. I have a coffee with free resources and stuff for streamers and content creators. I also stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST, and I have an Etsy shop. So I hope to catch you guys there or in another one of my videos. Peace.